Chad, we got some TommyNFG today. Why Gen Z gave up on kids. And that's pretty easy, bro. Look at the thumbnail. Cooked economy. Ya got no manions. I should say we, because I'm part of Gen Z, unfortunately. Politics is getting scary, bro. I don't know. I just feel like now that we're more grown, we're actually getting into politics, which is separating a lot of people, which then leads to hateful speech, and that's disgusting. Zero jobs. You're welcome for censoring it. But anyways, yeah, really hard to get a job at the moment. People be talking about how Indeed is like a nightmare, and yeah, bro, you cannot get a job. You're welcome. Debt is crazy, bro. The only way to afford things now is to go into debt. Even though you don't have the money's right there. Just max it out. You'll be all right. That's L advice. I lied. All right, anyways, let's check it out.
The family dream for decades around the world was going through life exactly like this. Going through elementary school to high school and having your typical good and bad experiences. Good experiences being meeting good friends you may have for life, and bad experiences being, I don't know, getting your head dunked and swirled in a toilet. I refuse to believe this has ever happened in real life. Like, I don't know where shows came up with this trope. Meeting your high school sweetheart and you both graduating. Going through college and having your wild phases. Then after graduating, having a couple more years before settling down, marrying, and having kids. Universally through the world, I feel like this is the typical path people see of how it goes.
Correct.
And with Gen Z, it's becoming more and more common for people to not want this path. According to the stats, almost 1 in 3 Gen Z and millennials are saying they won't have kids at all. Not even talking about kids, most aren't even trying to get into a relationship. Most dudes are either chronic gooners and gave up on love after their middle school breakup, and most girls are either insane femcells on Twitter saying men should have to earn the right to have freedom.
Every guy should start in jail and have to work his way out.
Absolutely.
Oh.
I think
love
that's
that idea.
because it's like you need to earn your place out here.
You do.
In my opinion.
You do. And it should be treated as if they're on probation for a while.
Oh, wow.
One strike, you're back.
Yeah, even when they're out. Yeah, you're
Yeah.
right.
I think
that sounds like a great idea, Chad. As soon as you turn 18, jail. Earn your place in life. And if you can't, back to jail for the rest of your life. Anyways, for me though, I do want kids. Me having kids is dictated by my finances. I'm a heavy believer in not everybody should be having kids. 1 and 2, you should not bring a kid into the world if you're not ready yourself. Because, bro, I feel like that's just selfish. How you gonna bring a kid into the life you're living and you struggling? Now you're gonna struggle even more, and now your kid is gonna have a hard time. You feel me? So, my finances dictate that. Now, I definitely want at minimum 3 kids, but if I could be rich, you know what I'm saying, and have a lot of money, I'll do more, bro. I think starting a family is really like beautiful. Kind of like passing yourself and your traits and your personality and who you are into your kids. I think that's so cool, bro. It's like having a little mini army of yourself. But obviously, you would have to raise them right. That's kind of scary, but you got to do the best of what you got to do. Anyways, another thing is Gen Z I feel like they're saying no to life. What do I mean by that? A lot of them get jobs and see the pay and they're like, bro, I'm not doing this shit. Back in the day, we would tolerate that because we could do something with that. I sound old saying back in the day, but right, minimum wage, you could at least like afford groceries. You could at least afford gas. You could at least help at home, you know? But now they see the minimum wage and see what they're getting paid. They're like, hell no, this feels like slavery. Trying to get a different job somewhere, and they're like, this is impossible. Going to college, balancing college, life, this, that, friends. It's just like, they're just saying, no, I don't want to do it. So they decide to just tap out, bro, and become gooners. And we have a few of those in here.
slave masters had that.
What the fuck did I just hear?
You do.
In my opinion.
You do. And it should be treated as if they're on probation for a while. Like, one strike, you're back.
Yeah, even when they're out. Yeah, you're right.
I think slave masters had that type of idea going on. At least they're being nicer, I guess. They're saying they'll free us. Anyways, I'm so glad of hearing the stats. It's not just me, and y'all are alone too. Yes, we are gonna be single the rest of our lives and have zero chance of a relationship.
Damn.
On 3, Gen Z, who's with me? 1, 2, 3.
Not me. Even dating is a problem too.
Yeah, so I thought it would be pretty interesting to talk about why it's become how it is for Gen Z. You know, people always talking about how birth rates are dropping drastically. And if you think of it, it's kind of hard to find someone nowadays that has kids in their early, mid, or late 20s. Like, out of all people I've met in my life, I genuinely only know 2 people in my life that are Gen Z and have kids. And this trend is exactly following how it was for millennials. Crazy to think how the older generations was just popping out kids as soon as they hit 18. Nowadays, if I see an 18...
I should ask my parents this question. I don't know why I haven't, but my mom is one of 13, bruh. How? My dad, one of like 14. How the hell did their parents have all those kids, especially back in the day? And my only answer to that is, they had to be bored. Because respectfully, what the hell are you doing in the Dominican Republic in the countryside? Ride horses, bro. Ride horses, work on your house or whatever it is that you're working at, and then on weekends go have fun, dance, and ride horses. That's the only form of entertainment I can think of. So it makes sense for them to do that, but how the hell did they do it? Now think of my mom, right? My mom only has 3 kids. My sister, only 3 kids. My aunt, only 2. Other aunt, I think only has 1. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, think about now your family and even your siblings. Bro, you might be an only child. You might have 1 or 2 brothers and sisters. Like, it just went down by a lot. But I feel like it's just because of life. It's just a lot of stress because now the man has to work, the woman has to work, obviously. And then to have kids on top of that, plus pay bills, I feel like it's just stress. So the only way that these people had all those kids back in the day is because there was nothing to do and life was less stressful, I guess.
Popping out kids as soon as they hit 18. Nowadays, if I see an 18-year-old saying they're gonna have a kid, all I'm thinking of is, man, his life is absolutely bro. This is the most obvious one, but one of the main reasons is the cost of living has been absolutely fried the past couple of years. I know. I talk about it a lot and all the time, but man, how can I not? I mean, literally no one even has an ounce of hope. If you ask Gen Z what their hope is for the future, all they're gonna think of is how the cost of living is absolutely cooked and it's only gonna get worse. AI and clankers are gonna take like 80% of the jobs, and the US is gonna go into civil war over these dumbass politicians. The cost of living would be one thing if it was just happening in 1 or 2 countries. But the fact that it's happening in multiple countries at the same time, man, just pass me the cigarette already. Us Americans always focus on our house prices and how cheap they are, which is true. But I feel a little more patriotic when I look at ours compared to the UK and Canada. This is a 650,000 pound house or $879,000 house. 5 bedrooms and 1 bathroom is diabolical. I know the bathroom looks like Chernobyl every day.
Jeez.
And in Canada, this is a $1.6 million house.
Who's
no
buying
Drake
that?
left out years ago. I wouldn't want to be there either. And even though I think money is obviously a factor to things like the house, I think there are people in Gen Z and millennials that can afford things like houses with a mortgage. But one of the main reasons they won't do it is because if they do get that typical family experience of getting a house on mortgage and having kids, they know they're gonna be stuck paying it for the next 30 years, probably barely scraping by. And
yeah, bro, I feel like, yeah. With like how expensive everything is, if you do get those things, like you're gonna feel stuck. Like, forget about vacationing, forget about having fun on the weekends. Like, it's now you and your partner to now lock in and try to get these mortgage payments as best or as fast as possible or something. You're gonna be tied down to this house, and that's what I don't want, Chad. That's why I haven't bought a house yet, because I don't want to get a house and like that be it. I feel like I'm gonna be settling, and I don't want to settle, bro. I want to be financially like free. I don't want to be rich. I don't want to be healthy. I mean, I said healthy, wealthy. Obviously, that's something that I would hope for and want for in life. But like at the minimum, the base thing that I can do right now, bro, is just try and be financially free to the point where I can do anything I want whenever I want at a reasonable, you know what I'm saying? Or financial stability. But financial freedom would be my goal. And then once the ball starts rolling and I can get a lot of money, sure, rich and wealthy would be amazing. But nah, bro, let's be real. Financial stability or financial freedom, one or the other.
30 years, probably barely scraping by. And in the act of doing that, the kids are gonna get neglected in some way. I know with my experience growing up in that typical type of suburb area, all of the kids' parents in the neighborhood, including mine, were barely home. We would be out when kids actually went outside late. And it would be 9, and some of them were still not back. Because on top of balancing the bills they had to pay, they also had to balance their kids' expenses as well. Which ended up affecting younger generations' mental health and is a part of why it's such a problem now. With younger generations nowadays, we don't want to put that same type of burden on our kids. Every generation tries to improve how they were parented and change it. And I don't know about y'all, but I actually want to be able to do things with my kids.
Exactly.
Go to Disneyland and all the fun vacation places. But if I gotta sit there balancing in this economy a $500K mortgage of a home that's the equivalent size of a shack, as well as taking care of my kids' expenses, I know it would be too much for me.
Yeah, bro, that's why like I said, I just want financial freedom, and I want to do it now that I'm younger, so that by the time I do have kids, I can be there for them and I can be there with them. Like, I don't want to be stressed working and then trying to figure out how the hell I'm gonna spend time with my kids. And if I do spend time with my kids, I feel like I'm not gonna be present. Cause chat, this is a bar. You can be there for someone, but are you present for that person? If you don't understand it, you'll understand later in life. You're welcome. Anyways, that's why you have to plan ahead as much as you can, and don't buy a house that you can't afford or take care of along with all your bills. True, because it's not just about, because bro, you could buy a house, but you're forgetting about the maintenance, you're forgetting about the bills.
Of a home that's the equivalent size of a shack, as well as taking care of my kids' expenses, I know it would be too much for me. Which is why a lot of Gen Z is even letting go of the thought of having kids. Why would you want to bring
that's
kids
scary.
into a scenario where it's potentially going to be chaotic? There's all different types of wars going on. You don't know what's going to happen economically in the next years. It's also the reason why the age of having kids has been being pushed up a lot. There's a lot of women now who are having kids in their mid 30s to early 40s, which happened less in the past because it was kind of shamed by society. The shaming has gotten better in a lot of countries, but there is those places where it's still like a very bad thing to do. I find that so weird. Like, I would never sit there and judge someone for having kids later in life. That's one thing if you're bringing up potential fertility concerns, but a doctor would tell you if you're fine or not before anyways. If I did want kids also and wanted to pay for a house, I probably wait until at least 70% of it's paid off, which older generations did not do. They kind of just hopped into a house and popped out some kids, then hoped and prayed they could pay off the house eventually. Another thing is younger generations are valuing their freedom way more than other generations in the past.
This is what I meant.
Typical boomer be like, when I was your...
This is what I meant. People are definitely enjoying their freedom, enjoying their youth way more than, I guess, the older generation, aka saying no to things. Like, bro, why the heck would I spend 8 hours at this job getting paid $12, $13 an hour when I could be over there with my friends doing this? They would rather pick their friends and go out. How the hell does the unemployed always got plans? And where the hell did they get their money from? I don't know, but they always lit. So more people are choosing to do that. They'll even go like, yo, why would I go to college, take all these courses and be in debt? I'm not doing that. I'd rather do this. He's capping. They just don't want responsibilities. Okay, that too, I guess. Yo. Nah, Gen Z is funny, bro. Y'all go like a job.
Another thing is younger generations are valuing their freedom way more than other generations in the past. You'll see a typical boomer be like, when I was your age, I already had 5 kids with another one coming. What's the hold up, son?
That's me, that's
the
me.
hold up is we actually want free time in our life and not have our life dedicated to kids fully. Society back then was literally just shaped on you gotta have kids or else you won't reach your full happiness. And kids are amazing things in life. I think I gotta say that anyways because I am the child of my parents. Some people get surprised though when I tell them I'm not even thinking of having kids in my 20s and I'm probably gonna do it mid to late 30s. It should have never been a thing in the past where people found you weird or strange if you didn't have any. Never in my life when I was younger and I saw a family member who didn't have kids.
Bro, whenever you're ready, you're ready. I think that's what it all comes down to with this generation. Have kids when you are ready, bro. And you're able to provide not just for yourself, but for your family, okay? Where it's not stressful. So if it's in your late 20s, mid 20s, do what you got to do. You know what I'm saying? Whenever you're ready, you got it, bro.
Been a thing in the past where people found you weird or strange if you didn't have any. Never in my life when I was younger and I saw a family member who didn't have kids.
Late 40s, I don't even think you can.
And now that I'm grown, I find it even more weird when a grown-ass adult thinks that. Social media was the true changer of how Gen Z and millennials approached the way they wanted kids. Before social media, people still went on vacations and traveled the world, but it's given us a brand new light on things you didn't even know existed in your own city. Like, you could go on TikTok and find some miscellaneous random fun thing in your city you never heard of before to do. I wouldn't know about a bunch of the little fun things that were going on in my city without the internet. And now because Gen Z and millennials aren't having enough kids and birth rates are plummeting, all the governments around the world are panicking what to do now. You got countries like Japan and South Korea pouring billions into fixing it only to have it get worse. Trump signed a law giving every baby born in America an $1,000 investment account. You know, I'll give the guy that one, but is that money gonna even be worth anything in like 18 years? If inflation keeps up, we're gonna be paying $200 for a Big Mac at McDonald's by the 24th. That's if we don't have a civil war with the clankers by then. No matter how much money the government gives to help with child costs, I think the lifestyle trend is stronger than that and it won't just fizzle out. Unless the government starts paying for like 70 to 80% of people's child expenses. It's now embedded in our society with younger generations where people are simply valuing their freedom more. You can see the stats. Even in places where the cost of living is decent to good, they have less kids because to people it's no longer their forefront goal in life. Even in countries right now where the birth rate may be booming, game. Like for a lot of the African countries, they're getting developed really fast. And as soon as it's developed to the point where people don't really feel a need as much, it's gonna drop. Crazy though how the governments only now care when people have been telling them for years they can't afford things. A lot of people say the only reason why the government even cares that the birth rate is declining is because they'll have less workers. And with less workers, they get paid less and make less money. But when you ask them
to be fair, without, kids because kids will always be the next generation. So if we're having less kids, technically the population goes down. And what do you need to build a nation, to have a nation, for something to be considered a nation? You need a population. So if it's low, then that makes us weaker. And obviously, workers is, a thing that we would need, of course, to keep the economy in that nation alive. But it all comes down to people. You need people to have a nation.
Birth rate is declining is because they'll have less workers. And with less workers, they get paid less and make less money. But when you ask them to put some things in law to help us, they go, all right, I hear you.
Facts.
Hear you. So you know what? $50 trillion to Israel. The hilarious thing is hearing older generations talk about how we don't work enough and we're lazy. Most of y'all already know it took them half the time to be able to afford a house working a job like us. But what's really crazy and what they don't want to acknowledge is how insane the billionaires were taxed back then. From 1940 in America to 1960, the highest income tax rate was 90%. No wonder it only took them 2 years to get a house. Y'all was basically getting them handed to you. Most of the ultra wealthy people back then didn't pay that full percentage, but they still paid a lot more than what happens today. Today, the richest out there, got like 500 different loopholes where they can pay $0 in taxes.
Exactly.
I promise you, if they change.
And let me tell you something. If I ever get to that point where I have all that money, if there is a loophole or something exists that I don't have to pay taxes like that, I'm gonna do it, bro. Like you can't blame people. I don't get this tax the rich thing, tax the poor thing, tax this, tax that. Taxes aren't gonna save anybody, bro. Best believe if I have millions of dollars and I can find a way to pay less taxes, I'm gonna do it. That's just being smart.
Laws, like 500 different loopholes where they can pay $0 in taxes. I promise you, if they change the laws to be like this again, you would see the birth rate at least double. Another thing that plays a factor into it is that younger generations aren't as pressured as much into having kids. Yeah, it still happens, but the way they did it back then, it was like you were disrespecting the family if you chose not to have kids.
Yeah.
So because of my decision in life that I personally made, you're now mad? I never understood this for real. Why don't you go have another kid or something? For now, they're staying in the sack. You still got content creators like it's the 70s blaming people for not choosing to have kids.
If you're not having kids, you're selfish. You should be having kids, sharing your knowledge, your resources, everything you have to give with the next generation.
What?
Kids are literally the best thing that is going to happen to you. You should start earlier than you think that you are ready. Having kids will actually make you ready, because when you have that forcing function in your life of kids, you will do whatever it takes for these little human beings.
People that don't want to have kids are selfish. Point blank. That's the only reason you don't want to have kids, right?
Bro, first of all, I'm somebody that does think you should have kids, but I will never call somebody selfish, because if you are not ready, bro, like if you're not ready financially, physically, then why would you bring a child into this earth? That in itself is selfish. If you bring a child into your struggling ass environment, that is selfish, because you are going to raise that kid in that environment where it's not good to raise a kid. So that in itself is selfish. Not having kids isn't selfish.
Here's the thing. It's okay to be selfish, right?
These people have completely lost what the definition of selfish is. Just searching up the Google
Exactly. I see what you mean. I can't take care of myself. How can I take care of another? Yes. And that's how it should be. If you generally can't take care of yourself, why would you bring a kid into this world? That is selfish. Having a kid knowing damn well you don't want kids is selfish. Thank you. Selfish. Of a person, action, or motive, lacking consideration for others. Exactly. So if you don't want kids because you don't want to bring them into this world, then you're not lacking consideration. You are considering it. You're like, nah, I'd rather not bring a human life into my situation.
Completely lost what the definition of selfish is. Just searching up the Google definition, it says lacking consideration for others, concerned chiefly with one's own personal profit or pleasure. So how the f can you be selfish for something that doesn't even exist right now? That's like someone saying I'm selfish for not donating the money right now that I may be making in the future. Like, I'm still homeless. I haven't made the money yet. To me, it would be way more selfish to have a kid I know I'm not gonna fully be there for and put them through problems, instead of just not having the kid at all. With people that say this, that want everyone to reproduce reproduce in the world? Are you going to be taking care of their kids if they're not up to
Thank
the task?
you.
Because if you're not, then shut the f up. Literally everyone in the world can't reproduce because we would be way too overpopulated. And the last thing that changed younger generations is the amount of communities we have. Back then, you had your typical family community and neighborhood with you, but it still didn't feel like enough. You felt like you needed that extra push. With us and social media, there is unlimited communities out there you can be a part of. You can have a community so niche it only has 1,000 people a part of it. For us now, since we're so used to the internet, that's absolutely nothing in the size of a community. When you physically think of it though, that's like 10 times bigger than the typical neighborhood community. So now imagine 1 million or 10 million and you could be a part of multiple of those communities at a time. It's almost impossible to not find a community you could fit in with online. Anyways, that's gonna be it though. Let me know your reproduction plans, guys, or if you have kids now. Make sure your kids watch TommyNFG for educational content always. Follow me on Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok. As always, I love you guys consensually. And
Until next time, I'm out.
I'm out.
All right, so here are my reproductive goals, or whatever he said. What are my plans? My reproductive plans, like I said, is all dictated by finances. Right now, honestly, 1 child, 2, not a problem. And not just because of my finances, but also because of family. Like, you know, I have a close relationship and a good relationship with my family. So my mom would be there. My girlfriend's mom would be there. Bro, people would just come together. If I genuinely need help, they will help me. But like I said, I also want a bigger family. So for that, it all comes down to finances. You know what I'm saying? But yeah, yo, TommyNFG W video, my boy.